Hi everyone, Tim here. So I'm here today to talk to you, the Create Leicester community, about a thing called the imagination economy. But before I get into the talk proper, I thought it best that I give you a bit of backstory into the topic. So I've been a professional marketer for just over 23 years now, and I've worked um, as a consultant, I've worked agency side, I've worked client side, which has given me the opportunity to get inside and have strategic conversations with thousands of different businesses across industries, across product ranges, across services, across business models, the whole thing. So a lot of my work is based on understanding business models, understanding the way organizations work, and understanding trends and behaviors so you can capture opportunities that are coming up, right? So I like to think I'm not bad at spotting those. Um, in the first few months of this year, there were a few things that hasn't happened in the previous 23 years. I had a lot of work, a lot of workshops working with leadership groups of organizations and reskilling and upskilling them with creative skills. Um, but not only that, I've also noticed that the organisations I used to go into and work with and stuff, they've now got marketers and designers and creative people at the top seat as CEOs, right? We're getting there. Tesco's is one of those. Actually, the current CEO of Tesco's is a marketer. I'm really marketing focused, which is brilliant to see. Because before it was very ops and financing, but the creatives are now at the top of the tree for many organisations. So bringing it a bit more forward, right, into actual Corona lockdown time. So after the first couple of weeks of craziness going on, a couple of things started to happen. So there's been a trend kind of in the early stages called organisational unbundling. So what that means for people who've not heard of that is that for a couple of decades before, like I've said, a couple of decades before, companies have been trying to bring everything in house. So they've had their own payroll department, own HR department, own marketing department, own accounts department, etc., etc. But since the fintech revolution, since we as individuals, we as consumers, right, have been taken over by the fintech revolution and used to now having unbundled our finance instead of everything in one place. We now have an app for pensions, an app for savings, an app for expenses, all that sort of thing. This sort of behavior has been replicated and been taken into organizations. So a few organizations I've seen are expediting organizational unbundling at this time because their supply chain's quiet, because people are in the midst of a force change. So putting more change in now causes less friction. And another thing on that as well, companies who have innovation managers or innovation teams have been to the front, right? Pushed right to the front line. So I know a couple of engineering companies, again, for an example, that their innovation projects that were due to be released in 3, 5, 10 years have now been brought to today. They're now the main focus of that business because business as usual is not no longer business as usual. Right? It's been changed by things outside of our circumstances. Supply chains have calmed down. So the innovation projects, the software projects, the digital business models for these engineering businesses have now been expedited right to the front. So it's an exciting time for the creative people. Right, I'll stop waffling. Let's get on with the actual talk. And I want to start by reading the quote on the screen. So the future belongs to a different kind of person with a different kind of mind. Artists, Inventors, Storytellers, Creative Right Brain Thinkers by Daniel Pink, prolific author and prolific speaker. Really good. But I think that sets the tone of the talk ahead for you. So, what is the imagination economy? Let's start with the dictionary definition of what the imagination economy is. Right? It's an economy where intuitive and creative thinking create economic value. After logical and rational thinking and processes or accuracy-based tasks have been automated. It's an economy where creativity adds value. Basically, it's the future of what we call work. And don't worry, it's not about tech replacing people's jobs. The robots aren't coming to replace us. The robots and software and all the tech at our fingertips are here to augment our humanity. It's to make us behave more human, because machines are better at certain tasks. They are better at accuracy tasks. They are better at repetitive processes. They just are. They can do them faster and more accurately than we can, which leaves the more human jobs, the more emotive jobs, the more right brain jobs ideal for us. And that's what the imagination economy is all about. So at this point, when I usually bring this statement up on a slide in a talk, there's a portion of the room, a percentage of the room, who I can see by their faces that are protesting that they're not creative, they've never been creative, or this is not going to be accepted by their boss because they're not creative, or colleagues because they're not creative. But everyone is creative. It's been proven by science. Real brain scientists have proven that creativity is a muscle. And like any other muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And there's four kind of areas of creativity, right? Let's define what creativity is, because it's one of those beautiful English words that means a bunch of stuff, right? Creative can be somebody who knits bobble hats and sells them on Etsy. It can be Banksy. You can be an inventor like James Dyson, or you can be me, a marketing guy. We're all creative. But in context of the imagination economy, in context of the world of work, there's four core cross-functional creative skills that we're going to focus on. There's four strategic columns, and that's what we'll discuss next in more detail. Here they are. They're the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So let's take one of those at a time, right? Creativity. So in context of the imagination economy, we mean being creative, the ability to generate ideas, use our imagination to think of new and wonderful solutions. We want, under creativity comes innovation, which is creativity is thinking of new stuff, and innovation is doing the new stuff. So creativity in the area is the driving of new things, the power that brings to an organization to develop new business models, new strategies, new thinking, new products, new services, all that good stuff. Next up is critical thinking. So critical thinking comes in 2 main parts. It comes problem solving and opportunity capture. Now, problem solving and opportunity capture are vital to any organization, to any leader, to any entrepreneur. You have to have the ability to do that. And to be able to solve problems, you need to think in new kind of ways, because as the economy has just changed massively, right, with the coronavirus, and technology is changing the way we work at a faster and faster rate. So some of the problems that are coming up over the next period of the 21st century are ones that we've never seen before, or ones that we've never come across. So there'll be new problems and new opportunities that we face as creative leaders that we've not come across before. So we need new ways of thinking. We need to be creative in our problem solving and our opportunity capture. We need to look round corners that we've not looked round before in order to do that. Next is collaboration. So collaboration is working together as teams, working differently as individuals. And one of the key skills under collaboration is the skill of facilitation, right? Anybody who's a design thinker or service designer or workshopper in general, the facilitation skills that we have doing those workshops, like facilitating that change through those kind of methods, are absolutely at the fore of what we'll need to do. The role of the facilitator will be organisational wide, because we might have remote working on a more permanent basis, even not just because of the COVID thing. In general, it would have proved that it can be done for a lot of organisations. And collaboration and facilitation is all about alignment of purpose and expectation and accountability, right? We've also got technologies that allow us to collaborate with other organisations, with people not employed by us, with freelancers, with experts and all that sort of thing. So bringing that together under a facilitated process, under a shared purpose, will create economic value and social structure within organisations. And finally, we've got communications, right? So we've got how we communicate any of this change, the new ideas, the problems we've solved, the opportunities at hand. Our communication needs to become absolutely amazing. And for that, we need, the traditional recipe of what good communication is. We need empathy. We need the ability to define and formulate a proposition that people understand, no matter whether they're C-suite or they're the worker or the customer. It needs to be frictionless communication, connecting the people inside the organisation to those we serve outside the organisation. It's like events like this. Communication is slightly different now because we're doing it online. There's difficult in reading the energy of the room. This is a pre-recorded video. So I'm just talking to myself in my box room, which is a bit weird. And there's a good example about the importance of communication. I'm gonna wind off. So a company called IBM, which I'm sure many of you heard of. If not, Google it. For the first time in 43 years, I think it is, IBM are creating their own internal agency. They're spinning out an agency, right? And that agency is just to do narrative design, because IBM's main client base is doing digital transformation projects at 20 million plus, right? So big boys stuff. They've got nearly 400,000 staff, I think. It's a big company. But they understand going forward, they need to be able to communicate this level of change to a lot of people. So they're having a specialist narrative design agency that they're creating now and launching now. And it looks super exciting. I've been fortunate enough to consult a bit into it because I know a few people in IBM, and it's super exciting. But these are the 4 C's, right? These are the imagination, economies, survival skills, creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So just to wind off before we get into Q&A time, I want to display this classic graphic. For those who've not seen it, this is the diffusion of innovation. It's a classic in any kind of innovation, marketing, business kind of education. You will have come across it. Excuse me. But I wanted to use this as a kind of an illustration. So, in terms of the imagination economy right now, we're in this blue sector, this second sector, the 13.5% early adopters. We're already here, which means creatives like me and you, we are the designers of this future economy. We have the cross-functional creative skills, the communication, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration skills that, as an aptitude, it comes naturally to us. It's the kind of work we like to do. I do a bit of work for more traditional organisations, so manufacturing, engineering. But the example I want to share with you today is education. So, still to this day, education is judged successful on the ability to distribute and retain information. And we have data, right? We have data. The future, the imagination economy, the near future, we will not be successful education organizations, we will not be successful teachers, successful people, or successful workers based on our ability to remember and distribute information. We have the data at our fingertips. So I'm working with a few schools on kind of career strategy, and along the terms of, it doesn't matter what topics you take, unless you want to be super specialist, unless you want to be a lawyer or a doctor. It doesn't matter what topics you take, as long as the four C's of cross-functional creative skills, creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking, are involved in the teaching and the learning of those topics. Because they're the things that you can take away. They're the things that you will take as a young person into the future economy to be a successful leader. And there's a great opportunity for all of us, right? Because anyone can be a leader in the imagination economy. Because we're at a funny time where the generations are crossing, right? We've got more generations in a workplace than ever before. And everybody can lead an imagination economy, but being a brave creative leader means that you are the champion of these cross-functional creative skills. You are the person who is turned to for new ideas, for new definition, to bring teams together. You're facilitating the creative culture within organizations. And it's built on the cross-functional creative skills. The success and the future success of everybody comes down to those four things: the ability to be creative, the ability to think of new stuff and do new stuff, and be curious and look round corners you've not looked round before. The ability to think critically, the ability to solve problems, whether those problems are ones you've come across before or brand new problems caused by brand new changes within society. Or capture opportunities. You've got to be able to spot opportunities. Your eyes have got to be open. You've got to be curious again. You've got to have the whereabouts, the fortitude, the mindset to notice new opportunities and be able to explore them. Be inquisitive. And then you've got to be able to communicate those to your team, to your leaders, to your customers. The art of communication and definition and being clear and concise is super important going forward. And then collaboration. Organizations are unbundling. There's a trend. It's not my idea. It's been written about by many big kind of organizations. But the ability to collaborate within our teams, right, within our organizations, work with teams who are cross-functional. I know that there's been a few examples where marketing is now taking on recruitment in larger organizations, because marketing should be the center of anything people orientated, not HR. HR is becoming process, which means it can be automated, it can be outsourced. So collaborating with and understanding cross-functional teams within us, collaborating with agencies and specialists outside of the organisation is something that's going to be super important. And it's not going to be retainer based, it's going to be shorter term project based, impact driven, not activity based stuff. And we as leaders, we within as workers in our organisations need to have facilitation skills at the top of our resume in order to make that work. And that kind of brings us to the end. So if you want to know anything about me, my website's been on the bottom of all the slides. It's got pretty much everything on there. Otherwise, I'm open to take questions. Thank you very much. So we had a few questions. Shall we jump in, Lee, to the questions?
Yeah, go for it, Tim. Yeah, we had a few questions through.
Tim, there's a couple that's come through, and I've just noticed David would like to ask the question live. If that's all right.
Cool. Let's do that first, then, shall we?
So bear with technical things from my end, just to enable live functionality on participants. First thing is I've got to find where David is on the list. Bear with me.
Yeah.
So David, if I select that, you should be allowed to talk.
Hello.
Hey, David.
Hello. So Tim, over your past few weeks chatting with various industries, what are kind of people's kind of opinions on creativity? Is it going to get pushed back a little bit on the back burner when industries restart, or are they kind of going to keep going in a sense? Because we can't really go back.
No, you can't go back. So I know a bunch of stuff got paused in the beginning. Like I myself on Friday the 13th of March, believe it or not, all my work for the next 3 months cancelled. Like on Friday the 13th, who would have thought? Like myself, but it came back in dribs and drabs through April and stuff. So from talking with different leadership groups and different industries and stuff like that, there seems to be two definite camps. Now I certainly don't have an answer for everybody. I think everybody in this situation is having their own experience, right? So there can't be one rule for everybody. But I've definitely noticed two camps of people. So there's the people who are hunkered down in a bunker in the garden and everything's furloughed and everything's stopped, and they're just waiting until it's normal to get back. Whether that's because they've got like 4.5 kids, they are now homeschooling, so work is not a thing, or just out of choice, really. But there is a bunch of interesting projects and industries that people who have innovation projects, who have the kind of foresight to be planning 3 to 5 years in advance, those projects have now been expedited to the front line, right? Because the normal business is affected in this kind of new economy, because the normal way we do business has been affected. So all the innovation projects. So I know a lot of people are launching kind of digital business models, which is great for creative people, great for designers, right? I know a construction firm who focuses on car parks, for example, is now doing a subscription of car park maintenance, because they know they're not going to be building a car park at Gatwick again anytime soon. So they're now focusing, they've still got all the guys and all the materials, they're focusing on doing that. And it's a great little model, because a car park starts at about £250,000 and they're charging £8,000 for a year and sending the people out. I know product design companies who rely on briefs from other ones have bought their own range of products out. Do you know what I mean? There's such scope for creative projects. I just think sometimes they'll be ones that have evolved or are slightly different than the ones that were planned before. Not that the ones that were planned before will never come back. Some of them won't. But I think the context has changed around it, and context is really important when you look at the big kind of economic picture of stuff. But does that answer your question, David?
Yeah, it's all good.
Awesome, cool. It led on actually to in the chat, James's talk answered a question, put a question in the Q&A bit that was pretty similar. I'll read out. So we put things are feeling particularly difficult to predict and navigate at the moment. What opportunities do you think we creatives have at shaping a new future? Which kind of it is very similar to David's thoughts. The opportunities are maybe not the traditional services, but I now know that creatives are getting involved in the strategy conversations, right? If we weren't before, if there's a bunch of creative people here that were on the production side of stuff, you know what I mean, on the maker side of stuff, following the strategy side, I know creatives now are needed in the strategy side because the problems they face, the slightly more interesting way that we think, the more curious our nature, will help them develop business models and products and services that they haven't really thought of with their traditional brain, you know, when they haven't got their day room. So I know, like I said, I just answered to David, that new business models, digital business models, right, subscription businesses, online products, like there's a bunch of companies who are normal companies that now have an interest in developing training products, which is fully creative, right? So it's video, it's digital, it's web-based, there's probably online payment sort of stuff. It's that weren't, you know, maybe back of mind, maybe in the good ideas for the future pile. But now, because this thing has had such a dramatic effect on the main revenue streams of a lot of businesses, that these products are now urgent because they don't want to be in the same boat again if there's another lockdown with COVID or another pandemic. It's really interesting time, but I think we'll have, if you're a creative and you don't have experience or knowledge in strategic thinking, now's the time to kind of skill up on it. And there's loads of good books, there's loads of good people on YouTube that you can do, but it's taking that step forward, right? Like I said in the talk, like creatives are the leaders of the next generation because we're already kind of there with our aptitude, I think. Hope that works, James, for you.
I've got a question, Tim. Just on from that, do you think longer term, as businesses and organisations start to think that they need to think more creatively, do you think the opportunity will arise, or even an impetus for designers to start to break into executive positions, C-suite positions, or board level positions? And if that opportunity does come, is that kind of key for this, the imagination economy to thrive and to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big bunch of my work, although I'm my traditional label is a marketing guy, right, is design and design thinking and that aptitude, right? And the future is definitely helping transform businesses become more agile, you know, in a designer's way of thinking. You want to prototype and test and iterate and get stuff out, and that sort of skill set isn't now valid in the design department or in the creative department, right? That's a business skill, like today, never mind about in the next 3 to 5 years. It's a business skill today. So I think there's opportunities for designers to, you know, to put themselves forward, to add value into the meetings, because the traditional way of thinking for many isn't, you know, won't do, or just needs changing, right? One of my favorite analogies, if I'm honest, right, for creative people like us, is that we are all teachers. If we learn something during our job as a creative, as a designer, as whatever our jobs are, if we learn something, it's our job to tell one more person, to teach one more person what we've learned and how we've learned it and why it's important, right? And if we do that, if every time we learn stuff, because we're always pushing forward, we're always kind of nudging the boundaries, right? If we just taught one more person, whether it's client side, whether it's in our teams, whatever, what we learn and why it's important, like that will move organizations and cultures and individuals forward at such a rate that you become that kind of, you could become more known, like, and trusted, right? Like classic sales stuff. And that's the way you build trust, is by teaching people, by listening and teaching people, I think.
Thanks, Tim.
No worries.
Lee and Nick, we've got Nikki who would like to answer, well, sorry, not answer, ask a question live. So if I can just get her to jump on, and then
Yep.
Nikki, you're on.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Tim. Yeah, so just thinking about kind of how so many businesses have kind of made those changes, and they're delivering so much stuff online now, and there's just the massive use of Zoom, which is brilliant, and with a lot of my clients as well, they're kind of looking at taking that forward and doing that long term. It's the difficulty, I don't know what my question is really, but it's just that difficulty around how to do that kind of, especially when you're kind of delivering workshops and stuff, how to read the room, like you said at the beginning, when you're not in it. And also, because you can kind of sit there and give your personality and do all that kind of, I'm a human being stuff and all the empathy and all that kind of thing. But it's kind of being able to bring that out in other people as participants, which, if you're stood in front of people and you see that there's someone that's perhaps going to be more hard work, or there's someone that's dying to say something, but they need that little bit of help to kind of bring it out, is how we do that when we're, as in this kind of format. It's quite tricky.
It is. And I, like I said before, like this quarter of the year, like my aim was to just deliver workshops and seminars because I like doing it, because it's fun, right? Like I didn't really want to do like any actual work, if I'm honest. I wanted to deliver workshops, right? And that changed. That changed for me. But there's the role of the facilitator, right? Facilitation as a skill, right, is super important in that role, right? And you have to kind of power it. Do you know what? Like, these online experiences have to be designed, especially workshops, right? And you can't now expect somebody to sit through a full day or even a half day, 4-hour workshop, right? Staring at PowerPoint after PowerPoint. Like, delivering a half day workshop in real life isn't particularly an issue. It's all right, the energy is different, but you don't want to do it on, like, I don't want to be on Zoom for 4 hours in a row, if I'm honest, right? So you have to break it up into kind of manageable, bite-sized, purposeful chunks. So there was a great example of this, right? Like a normal half-day workshop, for example, or a seminar or a conference or something, right? You would do a launch event, like on Facebook Live or Instagram Live or something like that, setting the scene, a bit of a backstory, introduction to the thing on say the Monday. And then on the Wednesday would be the main piece of content where it's delivered via slides, there's information, there's data. This is the bit where they're learning, right? And then you have to follow that up with something conversational, maybe something peer-to-peer, like a Q&A session or a panel where they can prove what they've learned true in their own minds in a separate thing. And then there's like an end or a finale where there's people setting the scene, some stories, some user-generated content, some questions that are delivered in that format. So I know a lot of really successful kind of conferences and events that have been broken up over a week into little bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
Right, and that's worked really, really well, and it's a lot easier to manage. Because people have an expectation of what they're getting in this hour is this thing. So they're kind of provided for it, whereas so it's not one big input where you'll lose people. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot easier to manage in bite-sizable chunks. But there was a great example that's, I think, still on crowdcast.io called the Space in Between Festival from a couple of weeks. If you Google it, look for it on Facebook. It was very much on Facebook Live and then a talk. But they did that. They had a week's worth of people dropping in, delivering 10-minute talks, and then loads of discussion for the rest of the day. And it was really good, like really, really good. So you just have to make it easy for yourself. You can't expect the in real life tools to work as effectively online. You have to change it up. Does that help?
That's great. Thank you so much, Tim.
No problem. No problem. No problem.
Thanks, Nikki.
Okay.
We've got one more question from Rob.
Yeah, Rob in the chat. Is he coming on? Oh yeah.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Rob. Can you hear me?
Hey, Tim. Yeah, big fan.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just so someone recently said that the Church of England have had to digitally innovate like everyone else, and they've in the last few months done more than they would have predicted in the next 100 years. Do you think there's a pressure from companies to handle that internally? And if so, is there a bit of a skills gap with that imagination? There's skill set that imaginative, creative people need to be able to handle the innovation.
So yeah, there's a couple of points there. I think there definitely are creative skills gaps.
Yeah.
Within organisations as a whole, right? Because if they've probably they've got a small marketing department and a designer and a little thing, they will be classed the creative part. But creative isn't making things look pretty. It's not in a business sense. It's not context. So you have to teach that the context of what being creative means and innovation means, because you have to think differently in order to manage change at such either a fast rate or a large scale. Can I imagine that for the Church of England would have been difficult to manage in a kind of a nice way. So there is definitely a skills gap. But in terms of creative, there's always creative people within organizations, and I think it's their time to step forward and have those strategic conversations, as I said to Lee earlier, right? Because it's important what we do, the way we think, the way we work. Like I said before, there's a bunch of workshops coming up that I'm doing for councils and stuff on agile project management and stuff like that, and design thinking and helping them problem solve, because they're trying to do it in the same way working remote as they did before, especially Nottingham City Council, which there's 4,000 people, I think, in Locksley House in Nottingham, in 260 different departments. So they can't, it's like they can't gather in a big central area anymore, and they're really struggling. But the skills gap is real, right? And it's important, but it's not that far away. It's not bigger. It's not a massive step, I don't think. I think it's a matter of taking a step back and seeing the bigger picture and seeing it's only a little step. If you're face to face with it, it might feel daunting and big, but actually, in the grand scheme of things, we're not that far away. Does that make sense? Did I waffled there, Rob, right?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Cool.
Tim, there's one question that came on the Q&A from Marija. Apologies if I've mispronounced that name. If it's okay, I'll read it out.
Yeah, please.
Do you think, let me start again. Do you think there are going to be enough workplaces for all creative people? And how do you see the future jobs market? And there's a big word in there, but I can't pronounce it.
That's right. So I've been doing, I don't know, what's that about? So the future of work, the future jobs market, right? So I'm lucky enough to be an enterprise advisor for schools and stuff. So I get to go in and talk with their leadership teams about their career strategies, which is difficult for schools because their jobs is to get people to pass exams, not how successful will they be 4 years after that, right? And now is that tricky time because my daughter's 13, for example. So she's just picking her options of what to do for the next 3 to 5 years of her education. And I'm going, well, just do topics you like, but as long as you understand the cross skills, like knowing French or being able to do home ec by the end of it isn't really the thing that you're learning at school. Do you know what I mean? Because the future's changed, and the jobs that will be out when she comes out in 3 to 5 years' time aren't here now. And it's difficult, right? There's jobs. When I started working, like my first proper job after being holiday reps and stuff was in early 2000s. There wasn't any social media managers. There wasn't really UX designers or called UX designers. Like design thinking wasn't a job I could go and do. Like there was like things evolve so much. So it's the skills that we have that are cross-functional skills, right? They're the important things, right? Project management, ability to communicate, good teamwork and good leadership and good facilitation. You could do an array of jobs under that, and it's that change that's happening now. For example, I know an organisation actually in Leicester that are using this time to expedite a change in terms of future job roles. So they have a HR department that looks after, you know, traditional HR stuff, recruitment, contracts, all that sort of stuff, happiness, employee experience, that sort of thing. But now they're using this time for recruitment to come into marketing, right? Because marketing should be the bit that understands people. It's the human-centered part of an organization, right? And we're good at recruiting the right people in terms of customers, but you should be recruiting the right people in terms of teammates and candidates and leaders and stuff like that. So HR is just going into operational and contractual and not kind of people facing, and marketing is running the whole experience and whole human centered part, right? And that's just reskilling and replacing and repointing people instead of what they're good at. So I think people will not live by job title labels as much, to summarize that point. I think we'll be good at some skill sets and we'll be the right lady, man, whatever for that job, and it won't matter what our job title is. I think it will be a lot more agile and a lot more fluid. I hope that answered your question.
I just want to follow up on that as well, Tim. Do you think as well, it's one of these dangerous terms where you become a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? Which is always a classic phrase. But do you think with the landscape of the job market happening now, people need to be the jack of all trades, be flexible enough to branch over different disciplines? Or do you still feel that it could compromise creativity and quality to creativity?
I think I think there's still room for both, right? So there's a really classic explanation of being a T-shaped person, right? So creative people and marketing people should be T-shaped, really, meaning we can talk about a broad range of stuff, but specialize in a thing. I think now it's more pie-shaped, if you imagine the symbol for pie. Sorry, I'm trying to do it, can't work it out with my fingers. But the symbol for pie, I think people will be more pie-shaped. But if you're a specialist, if you're super specialist at one thing, that will become super valuable because we will still need super specialists. Right? But if you're not bought in or passionate about one thing enough to go, like, stick your flag in it for a long-term label, then try stuff, right? Be curious, try things. You might be really good at it. And plus, there's going to be new opportunities and new problems to solve in your organizations or in the marketplace, in the UK economy, whatever, right? That you can try new stuff and always go back to it, because experience is something that you can't train, you can't teach experience, you just have to live it. So like I wouldn't, I'm a generalist, you see. I'm not particularly good at anything. I know what good design is, but I'm terrible at it. I know what good copy is, but I'm terrible at it. Like, do you know what I mean? So my role has to be the generalist, the strategy stuff. But one skill you do have to keep across it is understand what strategy is and why it's important to an organization, even if you are focusing on one little bit. Like, look at the bigger picture, because that's what will get it heard and get it to make more impact, I think.
Yeah, nice. in addition to that, do you feel, I mean, the classic example, the classic career path many designers, artists go through is doing the classic art and design foundation course back at university, where you dabbled in different little disciplines to try things out, to discover, okay, I like this particular niche, I'm going to go down this career path. Even from, I've seen recently master's degrees have started to dabble in both design, engineering, and in even business knowledge as well, to touch upon this whole T-shaped discipline. Do you feel in undergrad they need to do more of that, where they are dabbling in more areas than one?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I do a bit of lecturing and stuff at unis, and I'm entrepreneur in residence at Nottingham Uni, and I know that a lot of universities are trying that sort of stuff. For example, Loughborough Uni in Leicester, I think now you have to have a year out either working on your own business or in work, right? No matter what course you're doing, I think, or it's coming in, might be coming in. But I know in Nottingham there's courses where you can learn entrepreneurship. If you can teach entrepreneurship, whole another webinar on that. But where you can learn entrepreneurship models no matter what other course you're doing. But it's just a way of thinking. It's good business skills. It's very design thinking. It's based on imagination and curiosity as a business skill. You know what I mean? And being risk averse and the art of definition. Like being able to define a problem and opportunity so other people care about it. It's all that sort of thing that you can learn on the side of your chosen subject. So like history degree, for example, which, you know, I'm not sure for the future need of archaeologists or anything, but there must be a future need. But there'll be practical skills you can take from that. And I know that kind of transition's happening from the universities I work with anyway.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tim.
Cool.
Lee, I think there's one more from Ian.
Yeah, in the chat.
Yeah. I think.
So what I've got from Ian Heath, what is the key imagination skill for people to learn to apply for any job? It's one of any one of the 4 C's, right? I think they work together in unison under the word creativity. Like you need to be able to have and generate new ideas, right? Whether that's simply being able to ask a good question, or being curious, or doing idea generation, like coming up with a whole new concept or thing. But then why that goes on, you need to be able to define and communicate that clearly to your team and your leaders. So the collaboration side of it, right? You need everybody in the organization to be aligned to this idea. So, I mean, I'm super biased, but I would talk, I think kind of design thinking as one skill encompasses all that thing. If design thinking can be classed as a skill, I'm going to class it as a skill, right? But design thinking does that whole end-to-end piece. It helps you refine and come up with an idea and test it with people and be able to communicate it clearly and ship it out, right? And I think human-centered design, so service design, customer journey design thinking, any of those, they're all really kind of the same ballpark, the same skill set. I think they would help you going forward for any job, because I don't know any job where that sort of level of thinking is beneficial. I think that was it. Was that it? Oh, we've got one in the chat, have we?
Yeah, that's the last of the questions. Yeah, I think that's the chat clear. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Cool.
So, well, a round of applause, Tim. Thank you so much for your talk this evening and for going through and answering those questions. I enjoyed the talk. I'm sure everyone in attendance did. And yeah, one last time, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I've got a couple of slides just to finish off, if that's okay. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. So, one last time, thank you very much to Tim this evening. As always, I'd like to sign off by once again thanking the people who help us make this happen. So a virtual round of applause to Site, De Montfort University, Effect Digital, Hurdle, Searchability, Triangle Networks, Untitled and Zybis. To our virtual bar sponsor, The Agency Works, and to our partners, Bulk Studios and the LCB Depot. Thank you as always, guys. We're open to all here at Create, so if anyone in attendance this evening fancies speaking at one of our future events or has seen or heard someone that you think would be great for any future event, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can find out our contact details on the website or via social media, so please do get in touch. Our next event was scheduled for late summer, early autumn. Obviously, we don't know what the climate's going to be looking like at the moment, but rest assured we are thinking of ways that if we can't do it in person, then we're thinking of new ways to bring content to you in the future. So our next event, stay tuned for details on the usual channels. And thank you and good night. Thanks for joining us. I know the weather's been great, so we do appreciate your time. And I think Tim's talk was fantastic. So thank you again.
Thanks again, Tim. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Lee.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.